Hello everyone and welcome to PreSonus Live. I'm Justin Spence and today's very special episode is brought to you by Unique Squared. We have studio monitoring with PreSonus and a 5K boost. And what that means is Unique Squared has been so cool to offer prizes of $5,000 in giveaways. We have 4 giveaways, so it's 2 $500 giveaways, and then there'll be one $1,000 giveaway, and then 1 grand prize giveaway of $3,000. So you're gonna wanna stay tuned. Now everybody who's watching is entered for a chance to win. The second $500 giveaway, you need to tweet hashtag PreSonus giveaway, all one word and the URL to this webcast. That will enter you for a chance to win that. So without further ado, I'm gonna introduce you and send it off to Wesley Smith, our product manager, and Ryan Roullard, our social media manager.
All right, let's get started. Do you want to get started?
Yeah, let's get started.
Let's get started.
Let's do it.
Where do we started? There's, there's 9 of these.
Is that, wow, there are 9.
There
I
are
knew
9.
I was busy. Okay. Well, let's start with the Ceres speakers. These are our new speakers. We just came out with them this last fall.
Right.
They're Bluetooth monitors. We have a 3.5 and a 4.5 inch version. They're great for home use, bookshelf monitors. They have really flexible connectivity, so you can connect your CD player, if you have such a thing anymore, or your MP3 player.
Your 8-track.
Your 8-track.
Edison cylinder.
And your TV, everything can connect right to them. Plus they have Bluetooth. You can pair 2 different devices to them. So, my husband and I always fight over our Bluetooth speaker because...
You can duke it out on you?
Well, no, because we have an outdoor speaker that's Bluetooth and only one of us can pair at the time, and then we have to repair, and he always gets confused because he's not so technical. So these would solve that, so we're going to bring some home for Hanukkah. And then we have our Eris line. These are great, just workhorse production speakers, traditional layout, so you have your tweeter and your woofer. We have the 4.5s, which are nice and compact. They have a headphone jack on them. We have our E5s and the E8s. So a really great production line, good for editing, good for home use, good for home studio monitoring. Then we have our flagship Ceres, or Sceptre, speakers. And the Sceptre speakers are really unique. They have our proprietary coaxial driver in them. And these are just amazing studio monitors, great 3D imaging. So that's kind of the line in the nutshell. Plus we have our Temblor subwoofers.
Couple of subs. So should we start with, I think location is important. I think a lot of people who want to get into audio production, maybe you're just getting started out, the setup they have, the room they have is maybe less than ideal. You don't start in a studio, you start in a garage or a basement or a bedroom or something like that. So what are the considerations for the environment that the speakers are going to be in?
Right. So, the first thing you want to think about is the size of the room. If you're in a very small room that also doubles as your guest room or your den and it's only like a 10 by 10, you don't want to jump up and get some Ceres, Sceptre. Why do I keep calling these Ceres? Sceptre S8s. They'll be too big for your room, and while they'll sound amazing, you're going to get boomy and you're not going to like them as much in your space.
Sure.
If you have a really large room, then definitely get an 8-inch speaker, maybe even a subwoofer to kind of fill that space up.
And I think if someone was really ambitious and did that, they could produce many mixes that they think sound great, and then they charge a band and the band listens to them and the bass is just completely screwed up.
Right, usually just gone because it'll be too boomy and you're compensating that for in your space. And then the other thing is where you are. If you're in an apartment, you don't want to get a pair of 8-inch studio monitors and a 10-inch sub because your neighbors are going to be constantly pounding on the wall. Try to get something a little smaller, something that maybe you can turn down quickly.
I would probably just sample the neighbor and put him on the record.
That's a really good idea. I had a neighbor that used to pound on her ceiling all the time, so it was uncomfortable. It was all right. So,
you can pound a lot harder if you have a subwoofer. Like, she probably didn't know what she was getting into.
That's right. So the other thing is your budget. So when you go shopping for something, I'm always very budget conscious when I shop. But with studio monitors especially, you want to try to get the best speaker you possibly can for your budget. Stretch it just as far as you can, because you don't want to get something that's well within your budget now and then a couple years later have outgrown them, need something more.
Sure.
And, the nice thing is, I mean, obviously we have a line of studio monitors that will fit into any budget really comfortably, and they all sound great. It's just, different flavors for, different needs and uses.
Yeah. What about, like, test material? Like, what sort of music should people listen to on these when auditioning them or choosing them? I think more than anything else, a speaker is something you really need to hear before you make a decision, if you're going to be spending a bunch of money on it.
Right. I mean, I think that you obviously don't want to go into your local music store, over to your friend's house if they have a pair of speakers you're thinking about getting, and with your phone and some MP3s.
Right.
Because that speaker is going to sound shrill and not as good as it would.
Streaming audio over Wi-Fi, yeah.
Always use, full resolution audio. And pick the type of audio you're going to listen to when you're mixing. So if you mix a wide variety of music, make sure you're bringing a wide variety of music.
Right.
If you only mix hip hop or if you only mix death metal, bring that, because that's what you're going to be listening to all the time.
What about you? What's your reference material? What's your golden record that this is the one I use to test when I need to hear how good a new piece is?
With mine, it's usually one of the Imogen Heap records, because she's got a really good Z-plane and three-dimensional mixing, which is something I aspire to and usually fail pretty miserably at. But if it translates really well on the speaker, then I'm like, oh, maybe I can achieve my goal finally.
Gotcha.
How about you? What do you like to listen to?
Pet Sounds.
Pet Sounds, awesome.
Default. That's
fantastic.
I feel like that answer is almost obvious.
Yeah.
Sorry.
At least it's not, Steely Dan or something.
No, it isn't. No, it is not Steely Dan. Sorry.
Steely Dan is always the default music demo record, I think, in general. Yeah.
I have not been informed of that. I wasn't made aware.
It's always that.
Learn something every day.
So the Eris speakers, we already talked about a little bit. They have a tweeter and a woofer, so traditional configuration, 4.5, 5, and an 8. And what's really cool about the Eris is the flexible connectivity on the back.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the back right now, there is, TRS, RCA, XLR. Yeah, you've got all kinds of options and a lot of tuning controls.
A lot of tuning controls, and that's what really makes them really unique. So you have acoustic space adjustment, so you can compensate for how far or how close they are to a wall, get rid of some of those standing waves. And then you also have a mid and a high frequency EQ on there, a little two-band EQ. So you can either use that to compensate for problems in your room, or if you want to say model what it'll sound on a cheap car stereo, you can roll off those mids, boost up the highs, and kind of tweak your mix to see how it will sound on a different set of speakers without needing another set of speakers immediately.
Very cool.
And then our flagship Sceptre, I said it right this time, speakers. These are really unique. There's a 6 and an 8, and they use a coaxial, which is our trademark coaxial speaker. And it's a horn-loaded coaxial driver inside of each one of these. And coax speakers are great. They have really amazing stereo imaging, really great three-dimensional Z-plane imaging on them. But the problem with most horn-loaded coaxes is they get a little honky, have a really boosted up mid-range, and
which
so
gets obnoxious.
It really does. It gets nasally, and everything kind of sounds weird.
People who don't speak in frequency bands will just hear it and kind of recoil a little bit, but they won't know why. It just sounds bad to them.
Right.
But it's that mid. I scoop it out of everything.
Well, and then the problem when you do that, because most consumer speakers have the smiley face EQ, and then you have no mid-range in any of your mixes. We've solved that with these through DSP, and so we've actually delayed the horn to the back plane of the woofer, so those reflections off from the horn off the woofer that cause that nasally kind of honkiness are removed, because everything's phase and time aligned.
Cool.
And so these speakers have you'll hear things that you've never heard before in your mixes. That can be a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah, for better or for worse. I've heard comments and seen comments from customers who've purchased these and installed them, set them up, gone back and listened to old mixes, and they're totally happy with how revealing the speakers are, but they say, I can't believe that someone dropped a tambourine in the chord, because they didn't hear it the first time around.
A friend of mine who's a very successful engineer, he's one of our artists, he remixed a record that he was working on, just one song, so he started out and he remixed it on these, and he played it for the artist, and the artist's like, oh, now you have to remix the whole record. So, I mean, just because the detail and the stereo imaging that you get with these, and you can really hear, it's well worth the investment. And then we also have our subwoofers, which we're going to talk about a little bit later,
Yes, please.
as well as how to connect everything together and make it all work in your space.
Excellent. Should we give away a shopping spree?
Let's give away a shopping spree.
Can we give away multiple shopping sprees?
Can we give away 4?
Sure.
I think we should give away 4.
Four.
Yeah.
That was predetermined. We're not actually just
No.
making this
No.
up. No. All right. Who wants money?
Thanks for hanging with us. If you're just tuning in, we're talking about studio monitors, PreSonus studio monitors, and we're giving away a stack of cash. So we're going to actually name the third prize winner of the $500 giveaway. Remember, before I name this lucky individual, this is your last chance to tweet #PreSonus giveaway. And you also need to put the URL or link of this webcast in that as well. So that'll enter you for a chance for the next drawing of $500. It increases your odds of getting that sweet, sweet cash. So let's see who our winner is of the first giveaway. It is Simon.W. Simon, congrats, man. That's awesome. We will be emailing you directly and giving you the details of your winnings, and you can go and spend it on awesome PreSonus stuff over at Unique Squared. So the next setup is going to be Ryan and Wes again, and they're going to talk about setup and calibration. Let's go back to those guys, and they're going to hook it up for us.
Okay, so let's imagine that a engineer has picked the room they're going to use. They've picked the speakers that are correct for the room. What do we need to know about setting them up?
Well, there's a few best practices that you want to consider if you can, if you have the flexibility to set up your room however you want to. Keep in mind, these are all best practices. If your room also has to double as a den or a guest bedroom, you can kind of fudge this because there's ways to work around them always. Okay. The first thing you want to do is set up your desk. And in your workspace, you want to make sure your desk is on the longest wall in your room, center if you can, about 8 to 12 inches off the wall. I like to bring that up a little bit so I have room to go back and check cables.
Smart.
You also don't want to set up your desk where the speaker is going to be the same distance to the back wall as it is to the side wall, because you'll create a corner, and that can create boundary boosting, which is, it can happen in your room too, basically, where any two reflective surfaces meet at a 90-degree angle. You get some boundary boosts, which can accentuate certain frequencies.
And your mixes are just thrown off completely.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, not off completely, but in that frequency band.
Right. You'll listen to it somewhere else, and you will have been lied to.
You will have been lied to, and you don't want to be lied to by your ears. That's never a good thing.
What about width and distance from where you're seated in your ears?
That's actually an easier one. You kind of want to set up as an equilateral triangle.
That is easy.
That is really easy. So you're the center, and your left speaker is the next point. Your right speaker is the other point, and your left speaker is the same distance from you as the right speaker is the same distance from you, and they're the same distance from each other. Yeah. So easy peasy. Kind of toe them in a little bit. Make sure the tweeters are aligned with your ears.
Okay.
If you have a big speaker like the Eris E8s, sometimes you got to flip those upside down, because if you're short like me, there's no way your ears are ever going to be aligned with that tweeter.
Right.
So that kind of that helps mitigate that a little bit. Also with the Erises, these are kind of cool because you can flip them on their side, and that helps a little bit as well. And if you do that, you want to make sure the speakers are a mirror image of each other, so the tweeters would both be on the outside and facing you. You cannot do that with the Scepters. Don't flip these on their side, but you can turn them upside down if you have to. Look a little strange, but it does work.
What about acoustic treatment for the room? Someone's in a room with a tile floor and brick walls. I didn't mean to scare you.
That's a little beyond my skill level. No, in a room like that with lots of reflective surfaces, you want to try to put some absorption material in there. If you're getting a flutter echo, and that's very easy to tell, you clap your hands, and if you hear that kind of digital weird echo, it's called a flutter echo, move your bookcase in the room, and that's a really cheap diffuser. Sure. Lots of absorbent material, all sorts of different sizes, kind of breaks that up. If you have a record collection, that'll work too.
Oh, cool.
So, and those, you can buy that through Unique Squared with your shopping spree if you win some, or you can use all sorts of homemade materials as well.
Okay, so we're set up. We have our monitors on our desk, equilateral triangle, no standing waves, bookcases against the brick wall. let's say we want to get another pair of monitors. What are some of the considerations for working with, two pairs of monitors?
Well, if you have 2 pairs of monitors, you want to try to get 2 different flavors. So if you have a traditional 2-way speaker like our Eris E5s and you want to get something larger, consider something like the Scepters because then you'll have a traditional 2-way and then a coax. And they're going to tell you different things about your mix. The Sceptre S8 will give you more bass response, and some of those more details tell you a little bit more about how your stereo image is looking. And then the E5s are going to tell you how it's going to translate on a traditional 2-way speaker like most people listen to music through.
Right.
And that's really good. It lets you get a mix that's going to sound the best across all speakers, not just in your nice studio.
I think that's important because you never know what it's going to be listened on. You're mixing for a range of averages.
That's
Everything
right.
from earbuds to car stereos to Scepters, whatever people might have at home, it has to work.
That's right. And that's the hallmark of a good mix, is how well it sounds across different speakers and listening environments. Once you add another pair of speakers, you're going to need to get some sort of speaker switching device to make it
like
easier.
this?
Like that. We make 2. This is one of them, the monitor station and the central station. And these are very cool because it's not just switching between speakers. It actually gives you more headphone outputs,
Right.
Talkback system if you don't have one built into your audio interface. And you also have input switching. That lets you switch between, say, a mix playing on an MP3 player versus a mix playing on your
Right.
out through your DAW. So very cool, not just speaker switching, gives you so much more and also lets you calibrate your speakers. And with something like this, you could also add a subwoofer if you have multiple speakers in the sub, and then you can listen to your subs with your speakers. Or if you just want one pair of speakers and one really awesome sub, you can do that too. Just through the connection of our Temblor series lets you do that. You can connect your audio source straight to the sub and then out to the 2 tops.
How do you know which sub is right for your room or for your monitors?
Well, the T8 is a little bit easier to negotiate because it is really for small studio monitors. Obviously, it's only an 8-inch woofer, but it's great for a 5-inch studio monitor, 4.5s, really nice for the Ceres speakers for your home listening if you want to add a subwoofer. It's a down-firing sub and front-ported, so it's going to give you kind of a different type of sound than you would if with a front-firing. So it's really nice with small studio monitors. The T10 is great for larger studio monitors, and it offers some really robust connection management, which you don't usually get in subwoofers in this price point or really at all. You can use it as the central hub. So like I said, you can connect your audio source straight to the back panel and then out to the 2 tops. It's got a built-in high-pass filter, so you can roll off those frequencies in your tops that may be canceling out with the Temblor.
Right.
And it's got a variable low-pass filter on it, so you can really dial in that crossover point between your speakers and your subwoofer and make sure you have a really smooth transition from your sub bass up to your bass to your mids.
My favorite thing, though, is the foot switchable bypass.
Foot switchable bypass is great.
Right. I mean, I spend enough time climbing under that desk wrangling cables. I don't need to get under there just to turn the sub off.
Well, and the problem is you can't A/B in that situation without something like a monitor station or a central station. And this is really cool because it actually bypasses the high pass filter up to your tops and the sub at the same time. So you really are going straight from subwoofer to no subwoofer with full range speakers. The Temblor actually has a sub output. So if you're in a large space and you're really battling standing waves and the bass seems, the best place for your subwoofer happens to be closer to the left side, and the left side always seems a little bass heavy. You can get a second sub, move it closer to the right side, and they'll balance each other out, keep the overall volume of your subwoofers down, and kind of mitigate some of those standing waves. So that's another really good solution.
Cool. What about calibrating all of these things once we've got, multiple monitors and subs and everything? What do people need to know about getting them dialed in?
The trick with calibration is a big word, scares people, especially when you start throwing around terms like 85 dB standard reference calibration, which sounds really technical. It's actually the easiest thing to do. All you're trying to do is make your left side and your right side exactly the same level. If you have multiple speakers, you want them all to be at exactly the same level, and your subwoofer at the same level of your speakers. We have a great video that Rick did, and we also have a guide that goes through all of this stuff that we've been talking about, walks you through the calibration method. It's really simple. Basically, you need some pink noise. If you have Studio One, you have a pink noise generator built right in.
That's right.
If you don't have Studio One, you can download some pink noise from the internet. If you're mixing in a DAW, you should reference from your DAW because that is the beginning of your mixing environment.
Sure.
Shoot the pink noise out through your system, get a little free SPL meter app on your smartphone, and you're done. It takes about 5 minutes, so easy peasy.
What about dialing in the crossover transition on the subs?
That's really more listening. You start out where you set the high pass filter. So if your high pass filter is set at 100 hertz on your tops, set the low pass filter at 100 hertz on your sub, and then you kind of dial it into taste to make sure it's nice and smooth. You don't want to hear the crossover transition, and you don't want to hear any frequencies that are boosted in that range. If you're really technical and you're super into it and you have a Studio Live mixer, you can use the smart system wizards that we have built in. You can shoot your studio, make sure your trace is nice and smooth.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, it's a really great use, especially, and the 1642 is a really awesome little studio box for 16-channel audio interface plus a mixer, and it has all those tools built into it.
Very cool. I feel like we've gotten too technical. I mean, I know that's what you do. It's the queen of all things technical, but I think we just need to give away some money.
I think we do too.
Give away some money. Who wants money? Who wants a shopping spree?
All right, we're going to give away some more cool prizes. Now, the second prize, or the second $500 prize, is going to go to the person we selected out of the numerous people who retweeted or tweeted the hashtag PreSonus giveaways. And that lucky winner is iMusic for You. And iMusic for You, we have $500 for you. So we'll be being emailed details about the cash prize or the shopping spree prize from Unique Squared, and we're gonna go to now. I mean, we've talked a lot about the studio line monitor, or the studio monitor line rather, and we're going to get to Ceres with Ryan and Wes, and they're gonna take it away and talk about the new Bluetooth monitors.
Okay, so with that covered, I want to move on and talk a little bit about Ceres, which are the newest addition to the speaker line, and Bluetooth.
We were finding that all of us were buying Eris speakers or Sceptre speakers to take home and listen to our TVs in. I know my husband has been begging me to bring some E8s home so we can hook them up to our stereo because he loves to listen to music really loud. And some people's spouses were complaining because they're kind of big and they don't really look like home speakers and they don't really have the type of connection options that you really need in a home environment. So we thought, wouldn't it be cool if we took our Eris E4.5s, which are nice and compact, and we added some flexible connectivity that you would really need in the home, some Bluetooth, maybe make a 3.5-inch version and bring that studio monitor listening quality to the home with the stuff that you need in a home. Compact, nice size, nice to look at, and lots of really flexible connection options.
There are a lot of connectivity options back here. There's a TRS connection, there's RCA, there's a sub out, and then Bluetooth on top of that.
Yeah, and it's great because you can use a sub out to connect right to a Temblor T8. So, and then use your Bluetooth device to control the entire 2.1 system. So it's a really nice pairing there. And this T8 works great with both the 3.5 and the 4.5.
I think also these would be an excellent candidate for a pair of alternate monitors in your recording setup too.
Yeah, of course.
And then you can just move them onto a bookshelf or something like that when you have people over.
Or if your home studio doubles as your family room, which some people do, this is right there. So, and that's great, especially if you have a large studio monitor like the S8 or the E8. You could get a smaller monitor like the 3.5 or the 4.5 and use it to A/B. And then the other cool thing about that is if you have someone come into your studio where they want to play you a track on their phone, because everybody has their tracks on their phone, you can just switch right over to your Ceres, they can pair to it, and then they can just play right there without having to get out wires and try to find that 1/8-inch to RCA jack that no one ever seems to have.
Gotcha. Well, I think we're done. I think we've got a grand prize to give away.
Is it time for the grand prize?
It's time for the grand prize.
That's a big grand prize.
You and I are ineligible.
It sucks.
I'm still excited. Like, I'm not going to get 1 cent of that.
I want to know what they buy.
Oh, yeah, we should find out.
We should totally. Whoever wins the grand prize, let us know what you bought because we want to know.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. This has been PreSonus Live. Thanks very much to Unique Squared for partnering with us on this, and we will see you next time.
So that's a lot of speakers. PreSonus has really brought it through with, the Ceres line, Eris, Sceptres, and the Temblor subs. We're going to do our first prize drawing at random for $1,000. And that lucky winner is Paul.Newberry. Congrats, Paul. We'll be sending you an email with the details on your shopping spree at Unique Squared. I wanted to remind you guys to remember that Eris 5s and Eris 8s are now being, when you buy a pair of Eris 5s and Eris 8s, you're getting Studio One for free, which is quite the value. So definitely check out Unique Squared and take advantage of this package deal. So we're going to do some questions now, and I have my very good friend and lovely colleague, Ryan Roullard, here to help us. And Ryan is going to help do the Q&A because he's a relatively smart fella. He's going to bounce some things. We're going to bounce some things off each other. Really actually cool questions. Good questions, solid stuff. First question, are scepters active or passive? This can be a long and short answer. I'm going to go with... Let's go medium. Let's go mild medium. Sauce on this.
6 stars.
Yeah, 6 stars. So they are active. Actually, every speaker in our line, Ceres, Eris, Sceptre, Temblor, they all are powered speakers. So they have the actual power amplifier built inside of the box.
It frees up some rack space.
Oh, there you go. And I mean, everything was hand-chosen, crossovers, any DSP that may or may not be in the box, everything, the components, they all work together, whereas, you kind of leave it up to...
Good point. Yeah,
and you may want to do that. You might want to have this amplifier and this passive box, but all of our line are active speakers.
I like to think that we've made all those smart decisions, so you don't have to think.
People who are smarter than me and you put together have made those decisions.
I concur. I humbly concur.
Okay, so this is actually a good one. It kind of follows on that question. Scepters, do they have DSP? That's a great question. Yes, they have a computer inside of them that handles all kinds of DSP because we stuck a speaker and put it on top of another speaker for a single point source. And that takes a lot of math happening there in the background to get that to sound a certain way.
Absolutely.
And their power, there's crossover, there's filters, there's time alignment, there's phase line, there's a bunch of stuff happening. And yes, there is DSP in the box. And there's some presets, like we have the dip switch presets on like a lot of stuff for tuning, and they have that as well.
Right. So that's fact. So the acoustic tuning, say the switches on the back of the Scepters, that's a DSP.
Correct. Correct. Let's see, next question. Oh, can I use it with a keyboard? I don't know what it is, but anything that we showed you.
Oh, sure you could.
Anything that you guys showed them today, you could put on a keyboard for sure. I mean, anything, that you're going to play music through, you could play whatever you want through them. I mean, I probably wouldn't use them as a monitor wedge for my bass guitar if you were going to use a 3.5 Ceres. However, E5 or E5, E8 Scepters would totally do that.
Well, and the nice thing about, actually, I think that particular question is, a keyboard of 88 keys, it's a full range instrument, right?
I got you.
And so when you've got a studio monitor that is, ideally it would be as flat as possible, it's not going to emphasize or cut out in any particular range across the entire keyboard. So it could be really good for keyboard.
I like what you said way better than what I said. Yeah, and then you got two of them. You get the whole spectrum, the stereo, like the way it pans out of the keyboards and stuff. So that's cool as well. Let's see. Next question. Does either monitor controller, I'm assuming the Monitor Station and Central Station Plus, do they support surround? And the answer is no, but that would be awesome.
That would be awesome.
There's a way to do it in software and using your interface outputs, multiple outputs on your interface. Yep. But as a controller, like a hardware controller that you put your hands on, the Monitor Station 2 and the Central Station Plus are not surround. They have 3 stereo outs, A, B, and C on both. Monitor Station's desktop, it has the phones outs. It has all of the input and output switching, like the Central Station, which it also has a remote, which is cool. It's a rack mount piece.
That's what I use, yeah.
Then you have your remote, which has a talkback mic built into it, which is actually what we use in our video production room and our control room for the studio.
That's correct.
So it's legit. So no surround, but multiple stereo output selects.
What about quad?
No quad. I mean, you could fake it till you make it, I guess, because you have multiple out. We have one latching output. Let's just say no. Let's just say no. Multiple stereo output. What software would you recommend to fine tune the room acoustics? I just got my E5s and need to do that. There's actually a video on calibrating your monitors. Now, this is not going to tune the monitor.
That's right.
What it does is it gets level consistent across your spectrum.
I'll toss that in the chat room after we're done here, yeah.
Yeah, so you could take a look at that, and that will get the level correct. There are numerous applications, one not the least of which would be Smart,
That's
something
what I
that we
thought,
have
yeah.
integrated into our Studio Live. So if you happen to have Studio Live and you're using your Eris 5 monitors and you want to calibrate them, that would be a cool way to do that.
Yeah, I agree.
But you can buy these softwares individually or separately directly from the manufacturer. You can get them from Unique Squared. I'm sure they have many options that you can choose from to calibrate or tune the monitors to your room.
But Studio One does ship with the tools that are required to get you very much in the
to
ballpark.
calibrate them to get everybody at the get left side the same volume as right side, which is kind of the most important part. And then here's another one: are they good for small studios? Well, I think any of these monitors are good for small studios, depending, like you guys mentioned earlier. Depending on what your situation is and what the room is.
Yeah, I mean small's relative too, but I think that S8s could be a little much for the cramped corner studio.
Sure.
Aim high, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But it would get really boomy really fast, potentially.
For sure.
But you've also got, you've got your room adjustment option there. But
here I'm going to throw in a question. I've always thought it would be, where is the crossover point? And this is also the same rules apply. Budget.
Right.
How big is the room? Are you close to your neighbor? Are you not close to your neighbor?
Yeah.
All those things that you guys discussed earlier absolutely are important things to consider. But where do I want to go from having 2 big monitors, or do I want 2 small monitors with a sub? And
good call.
I think in the way I do it is I want both if I can get them, but I mean that's a budget issue for sure. But I think a good thing to think of is definitely what are you doing? And then is it production or is it critical listening? I think if you have a full range, like let's just say if I want to buy Sceptre 8s, or I want to buy 2 E5s and a Temblor T10, both sick setups, sound amazing, but both do different things. If you're doing like production, editing, post, video stuff, I would say do the 2-1 system. And if you're doing critical listening in a studio of whatever size, I would do Sceptre 8. It's a full range speaker. It gets down pretty low. And then again, if you need to reinforce it or something, you can always get the T10.
You've always got
with
the option.
that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I definitely answered the question that I just asked, but I did say a lot of words, and that was interesting.
I like your words.
Nonetheless. We have, actually, that's all the questions that we have. I'm sure more questions will roll in, and you just keep them rolling in. We'll get them to the right people who can answer those questions. You can also hit us at education@PreSonus.com, and we'll get back to you through email that way. We do have a grand prize winner pick. Now, that's
big.
That's
it's generous.
$3,000. That's a lot of That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
You could buy multiple monitors. You could get monitoring station, big monitors, little monitors, and sub. That's a lot of
You could be set
change.
for years.
Yeah, I mean,
for
you
your
could
monitoring
get
for this amount of money.
a very respectable setup.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we've kind of waited long enough.
At this point, we're kind of being jerks by not having said who it is yet.
Right. So I think you want to
wanna-
announce this winner. You can
Okay. Yeah, that one's tricky. It appears that the URL of this email address is a part of a name, so I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
But it's Dwight at dwightc.com.
There you go.
Congratulations,
Yeah,
Dwight.
congrats, Dwight C. Man, that's a big deal. 3 Gs.
$3,000.
Thank you, Unique Squared.
$3,000.
That's pretty
That's
amazing.
cool,
I really wish we could have entered to win. I mean, I know that.
Not gonna happen.
I know it's not going to happen. But,
Not gonna happen.
And since it's over and we've already announced a grand prize winner, definitely not going to happen.
Certainly not.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. If you have any other questions about Ceres or Eris or Sceptre or Temblor or Monitor Station or Central Station Plus, definitely hit us up with the email at education@PreSonus.com. That, my friends, is PreSonus Live.
Thanks very much to Unique Squared as well. We'll see you next time.